Welcome back to my channel, beautiful humans. Today we are telling the story of the dress I needed to sew just so I could get to sewing other dresses, to be honest. I don't know about any of you, but sometimes I just need a quick project that I can pick up and do and feel some sense of accomplishment as a stepping stone towards getting momentum towards larger projects. It's a simple hack for me to get past a block of some sort. We've all come across those mental blocks. So today we are making a witchy vintage inspired dress using a commercial simplicity pattern here. It's a dress that was originally printed in 1952 according to the pattern, and they've been re-releasing this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the description as an affiliate link if you would like to check it out and possibly support my channel a bit. I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, no pressure. Honestly, I'm just excited to be back and making videos and sharing projects with all of you. One of the things that I do that is different than most of the simplicity pattern instructions just outright is I'm going to figure out my math and add a little bit of extra room so that I can do French seams. It's one of my preferred methods of finishing off 20th century garments, and it just makes it so much cleaner. I don't have time to deal with a serger. I don't own one. I don't want to. Honestly, from a design perspective, one of my biggest inspirations for this dress was what would Danni Dennison from Hocus Pocus look like as a grown-up. It's been 30 plus years and Hocus Pocus 2 is about to come out. By the time you see this video, it will be out. So I took her color palette and I kind of just ran with it. We have got the gourds, we've kind of got the blacks and the oranges. I think it's going to be a really fun outfit. One thing I tried to pay a lot of attention to this time was actually going through and marking and notching out my pattern pieces. I've never used this pattern in particular before, and I realized that if I didn't do that with just some of the bias angles and darts, not everything was going to match up the way it probably is supposed to, and those balance marks can really help you out. So if you're new to sewing and this isn't something that you've been taught to do, I'm going to highly recommend that you do that. That's what all those little arrows are when you pick up a commercial pattern. If you're looking at tools that can help you actually to up your game and make your tailoring a little more precise, I'm going to recommend some of these fine-edged bits of tailor's chalk and a sharpener for them, and maybe a seam gauge. I love the tailor's chalk with that edge specifically because it lets me make a finer line that I can follow more exactly with my scissors. When you're using chalk that's meant for a chalkboard, the line just tends to get a bit thicker, and in my experience, if it's not white, it's a little harder to wash out. I know this is probably going to be shocking to some people when they look at some of my pre-20th century sewing projects, but I actually do own a sewing machine, and that is exactly what I used to put together all of this skirt, at least everything but some hand finishing. It is in fact the same sewing machine that I got as a junior in high school. Thank you so much, Mom, when you're watching this later. It has gotten years of use and mileage and just needs to be serviced occasionally. Probably because it's mechanically based and it doesn't have a computer to go and be outdated. One thing I did find a little confusing when I was starting to sew together the fronts and backs of the bodice was how similar the overall shape was, which does make sense. It's kind of a boxy vest-like piece. I actually ended up marking both the front and the back facings and the inside of those pattern pieces with an F and a B in chalk. That way I could more easily tell them apart. Later on, probably after I've washed it and worn it enough times and put it on backwards a few times, I'll eventually get some sort of tag in there to tell me which is the front and which is the back. the way, if you're enjoying watching my sewing projects and getting some help with yours, go ahead and hit that like button. It would really mean a lot to me to get some feedback on how you're finding these videos and if they're helpful. For sewing and trying to get all of the facings to lay right and deal with some of the seams, I'm not gonna lie, I finger pressed a lot of those open just for this initial bit. I do go back and iron this sort of stuff later usually, but I don't have the room in my sewing room right now to have the ironing board and the sewing machine set up simultaneously. So I end up setting up the ironing board in the kitchen instead and walking back and forth between doing projects and steps. It's a little bit of extra work, but honestly, when I'm supposed to be working on walking around, it's probably not the worst thing in the world for me to have to get up and move for that. Is your sewing room also set up in that sort of an awkward way? If it is, tell me about how you get around it down in the comments section. If it's not, share how you organized your sewing room and life in order to avoid the dreaded kitchen table versus sewing room ironing and sewing conundrums. I decided on using a medium heat even though this is a cotton denim and would take quite a bit of heat if I wanted it to. Mostly because I was a little bit worried about all this gold foil and the gourds and pumpkins, everything around here. So I'm going to be nice with my iron, try and get some stuff lined up and then gently steam it while I try and hand sew and hand tack some of my arm's eye facings and neck facings down. I don't know about you, but I hate it when I have a facing that just keeps flipping up and gets crumpled and bagged up in weird ways when I'm trying to wear a dress, a shirt, anything that has a neck facing. So I go through and I tack them down with the smallest stitches that I can to avoid having it be super visible on the fashion side of the garments. One of the things I have learned about making 20th century inspired clothing is the process actually needs about twice as much ironing as all of us think it does. Or maybe it's just that my millennial self really hates ironing quite a bit. I mean, I'll do it. I know that the results are worth it, but it is not a project that I enjoy. So if you're not ironing at all, try ironing just a little bit. If you are ironing stuff, try a little bit more. You're going to get such better results with your projects when you take the time to iron all of your neck facings, your armholes, your shoulders, all of that stuff open and address that stuff. My hem was really down and dirty and easy because again, trying to just get the project done. It was a double roll hem and throw it through my sewing machine like the power tool that this is. Power tools. If you don't think that it is, I will argue with you in my comment section about this. It has a sharp thing, it uses electricity, it makes loud noises. Power tool. So this is a tip for larger ladies trying to use this sewing pattern. It does grade up to a size 24, which is amazing size inclusion that Simplicity has not been good about in the past. But if you have a larger bust size than probably a C or a D cup, you are going to really want to make a mock-up of this and adjust the darts. I did not, and I really regret it, and it comes back to bite me later. If you're having issues getting your curves to fold properly, to move around your body nicely, I'm going to highly recommend doing some little snips. This is going to let you get about halfway into that seam allowance and it opens up the weave a bit more, especially with a tabby or a twill woven fabric, so that it can more naturally curve around whatever curve or cutout you're looking for. And this is where the dart thing comes back to roost and bite me. really hard. The back honestly wasn't so bad. I didn't mind the back at all. I did find a way to try and get these darts to work in a way that wasn't horrible, but it ended up being a little bit weird, and I could have just done a whole lot better if I had bothered to take 20, 30 extra minutes and mark this up. And I'm talking over this with no relation to the lips that you're seeing, simply because the audio got super jacked up being right in my laundry room. But at the end of the day, it's not a horrible job trying to get that dart to work. I've certainly had worse darts. With the darts closed up, I was able to finish tacking down all of the underarm bits of my facings and address those in a much better way than they had been prior. I kind of think that that might have also played a part in some of the weirdness that was going on with my fitting, was those facings weren't all tacked down in the way I really wish they had been. So if you're going to do a mock-up or a working mock-up like this was, maybe don't put the facing on there until after you decide on the sizing. Just a thought. So I totally deviated from the pattern when it comes to my facings as well, because I didn't go and get iron on or fusible or sew in interfacing, any of that. I was using a denim, and you can make this pattern with a lightweight calico for quilting. It didn't make sense to me to add the interfacing, and it honestly didn't make that much of a difference. But that's because of the heavier fabric that I'm using. If you do use this for something more like a light summer dress, maybe go and find that interfacing so that your neckline doesn't bow and do weird things. Now, I just go through it and tack all of my facings down with a quick slip stitch. It's a really easy way and kind of my go-to method of doing these. I'm trying to just get a couple of the threads, and if I can avoid going all the way through the twill at any point, I absolutely do. Even to the point of pulling the needle out to try the stitch again before I pull my thread through. One of the other hacks I learned about doing these more covered zippers is to actually baste it in place. Fold it over, do the ironing, and then baste the zipper open with all of the folded fabric together before you start trying to run it through your sewing machine. I was able to do this zipper with one go because I had bothered to baste everything in place first, so it wasn't shifting and doing weird things. I can't remember the last time a zipper was that easy to put in. So please take some extra time if you hate zippers and avoided doing anything 20th century and later because of them. This hack could save you a lot of time. Just make sure that you go back in afterwards and get those threads out. I used sort of an olive green to try and make sure that I could see them when I came back. So after a couple more stitches, my dress was done. This is the first project I've been able to start and finish in less than a month since May, and I am so excited that I was able to do that. The finishings on it are way better than they have been for some of my other things I've been working on. And you can really tell, in my opinion, that I spent the summer laid up reading a bunch of couture and hand sewing manuals. It just made such a difference in some of the finishings on this dress. And if you've ever got the time, I'd encourage you to do it too. So what do you think? Can I pull off a grown-up Danny Tanner? I love the cute, kind of whimsical way this dress turned out. I don't need to be a femme fatale in anything or everything that I'm wearing. Sometimes I just want to sit around with my book, be comfy and cute, and enjoy the fall because it is gorgeous here in Colorado when the fall colors start coming into the mountains. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you take on doing some witchy vintage dresses this fall, please tell me about them. I would love to be tagged in them over on Instagram. I'll share them in my stories. And in the meantime, happy sewing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.